Okay, I'm loading up some of the logs I'm going to be needing to be for the risers and the sides of the set of steps over here. Of course, I'm going to strip the bark off these and plane them down. And this just gives you an idea of the log pile we've run through building this cabin. Well, actually, two other cabins in an addition. But all these piles were 5 or 6 feet tall. So this is about the third time I've handled these things right now. Right here, when this is finally cleared out, next summer I'm going to be putting a bandsaw mill right over in here, and I'll be starting to cut up my own 1x, and I'll be using it for the siding for the cabin right off for starters, but then I will make a little business out of it too eventually. Whoever invented this thing deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Can you smell it? Okay, I've got the logs over here. Before I'm even going to put them on the workhorses, I'm going to get some bark off of them. Let me get my gloves. I'm going to get the loose bark off of them, and then I'll take the chainsaw and nip off the branches, and then I'm going to cut them to rough lengths, and then I'll take the planer out and we're going to plane them down. But all I'm doing is taking a loose bark off, anything I can break easily, get it off of here. As you can see, you get underneath that bark, there's some pretty wood. Actually, I used to sell a lot of this as firewood. It's great firewood. Then I started to realize I was getting ready to build a cabin, and I said, you know what, I'm cutting this stuff up for firewood. There's lots of 4x6s and 8x8s and various sizes. So I can kind of tone down the firewood, and I started stockpiling logs, and I ended up with quite a few. Well, I was fortunate enough to find this piece of property about 4 years ago, and I've been hauling stuff down here since then. Okay, this is all lodgepole pine, killed by what they call the hips beetle. It's a small beetle that just gets right underneath the bark. It doesn't really go any further. So what I do is, it's a really straight tree. I mean, super straight. It's probably why they call it lodgepole pine. Well, I'll plane this stuff down, and eventually it's going to get a coat of oil on it. But right now, I'm just going to get the loose bark off all these guys, and then cut them to length, and then put them over on the horses. Okay, like I was saying, all this wood came from about 9,000 feet on a mountain surrounding a ranch I used to work on. We used to run buffalo over there. Well, this wood is so straight, and we mitigated this one hillside, I think, 12 years ago, and we pretty much cleaned it up, and we got it most for firewood back then. Well, I went 6 years ago, and did some mitigation there again, and that's where this wood all came from. I mean, it's got a moisture level of about less than 10%. So to give you an idea what that means, the 2x4s you buy at the Home Depot, they're supposed to be 15% or less. So this stuff is much drier than that, and it is super straight. And as far as structure, elasticity modulus, which is a word used to, or a term used to describe the strength of the wood as not to flex. This wood's as strong as Douglas spruce, which is one of your stronger species of softwoods used for building. So it's an excellent choice, and this is what a lot of the people in Colorado anyway, they've been sawing this stuff up for beetle kill for paneling, like a 1x6 tongue and groove, and it's got the real pretty purples and reds and blues in it. So for me, I don't really generally dig into the heartwood too much because I use them for structural members like rafters and beams, but occasionally after I plane them down, you will see a little bit of the purples and the blacks and grays and reds coming through, but it's not as often as it is in the paneling. Okay, I've got these guys sized, cleaned up, and I'm ready to size them now to lengths before I start to plane them. Okay, I've got these pretty much cleaned up, and now I'm going to use something that you might be a little bit surprised about, but a couple summers ago, we had real bad fire season here in southern Colorado, actually the whole state. And we had fire bans. Where I was building the cabin, I wasn't allowed to use a gas chainsaw because the humidity was below 6% for probably almost a month, which is dry as a cotton ball. So I got one of these. I got a 14-inch Makita, and I'll tell you what, this thing is awesome. Plus, it really saves your ears a lot. Okay, so I got these cut a little bit longer than 7 feet because the steps are just about 6, but I got plenty to play with. So these are going to be these 3 7-footers are going to get planed to the whatever the combined thickness of the tread and the riser 7 inches. So these will be probably get planed down to about 3.5 inches on a flat side, and then the round side is going to show. Okay, so I'm going to get these over on the bench, and then these other little pieces are going to be used for the side members. So get that ready. Okay, I got these pieces laid up on my horses, and what I'm doing is I'm sighting down them, and what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to get one flat edge with the planer, and then I'll round off the other 2 sides, and the bottom's going to get cut to a thickness, but I'm not going to do that till I actually know exactly what that thickness is going to be. Okay, now most of my knots, you know, coming out like this from branches, I just use my little carving axe on, clean them off. If there's any really bad spots, I'll hook the chainsaw back up again. But right now, I'm going to start this little pass on here, do that flat spot I was telling you about. And I got zillions of these little cut-offs, but these work as perfect wedges to lock those logs into place. So let me plug into some power here. Go. Okay, you can hear the planer working, so when you hear it stop cutting, just like you use any kind of a plane, take the high spots off first, but that's how straight this one is. I bet within 3 passes, I'm hitting solid contact everywhere. Getting close. Well, three passes. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfectly straight. So what I need to do now is I got to turn the phone around, which means I got to flip it from selfie mode. Okay, so what I do now is I just sight it. And if I see some high spots, I'll go focus them on them a little bit. And then once I feel like I get it down to the point where there's no high spots anymore, well, then I'll just start planing the thing down. And I want to go down so it's about at least surface area, at least 3 to 4 inches wide. So that's probably 10 or 15 passes. But I got to make sure I leave at least 4 inches, 3.5 inches here. So I don't think there'll be any problem with that. Sorry about that.